Let's get the meeting of the Committee as a whole for Business Affairs and Administration for July 2nd. Ms. Campbell, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Green?
Here.
Mrs. Heinz? Here. Mr. Derman?
Here.
Mr. Luke?
Here.
Mr. Harrell?
Here.
Mr. Nation?
Here.
Mrs. Richardson? Here. Mr. Winkler?
Here.
Mrs. Drucker? Here. Mr. Bettencourt?
He's ill.
Mrs. Lamy?
Here.
Mr. Hersey?
Here.
Mr. Burrow?
Here.
Mr. Kuzan?
Here.
Mrs. Page? Here.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. We'll dispense with the invocation and pledge since we did that in our prior meeting. Would any board members like to recognize a guest? Mr. Nation.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I was just made aware that Mrs. LeMain's, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, her mother has passed away today, Mrs. Brenda Crockett. So I would ask the board to keep Mrs. LeMain and the entire family in our thoughts and prayers. And please, Mr. Jabby, if you'll send our condolences, express our condolences to Mrs. LeMain. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Nation. Public comments. Has anyone signed up for 5 minutes? 3 minutes? No, then we'll move on with our program here. We have the approval of minutes for the committee as a whole meeting held on June 11th, 2020. Do I have a motion? Mr. Rucker, second. Mr. Luke, any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? Seeing none, let's vote. That motion carries with 13 yeas, no nays, and 1 abstention. For an administrative update, our annual uniform evaluation report, Mr. Kosei.
Thank you, Chairman. Our annual uniform evaluation report was provided to you by Dr. Tillman in PowerPoint fashion, and he is here tonight if you have any questions regarding that report.
Look, to me, everything's going to stay the same as usual, and then that we would revote at our next rollover or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Yep, next cycle.
6 schools that do not have uniforms and they will.
Right.
No, this
Okay.
is not a problem.
Yep. Thank you. The monthly maintenance and custodial report. Mr.
Yes,
Kosei.
sir. Mr. Green, excuse me, Mr. Gottschalk is here, our maintenance supervisor, for any questions with that report.
Any questions for Mr. Gottschalk? The monthly risk management report, Mr. Kosei.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Gaspard is not here tonight, even though we have that report provided by Mr. Gaspard for you guys. And hopefully you will not have any questions, but if you do, I will try not to give you the Holiday Inn Express answer if I can answer. But I did speak to Mr. Gaspard regarding the report, so if you do have any questions, I'll try to answer those questions.
Were there any questions from the board? Okay, great. You're off the hook on that one.
Yeah, that was the big cue. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Monthly transportation report.
And finally, my fourth and final report, monthly transportation report. Mr. George Bodie is here, our transportation supervisor, if you have any questions relative to that report provided to you.
Any questions for Mr. Bodie? Mr. Derman.
This may not actually be Mr. Bodie, but more directed maybe to Mr. Jabby or Mr. Kosei. And you know, with the state, have we gotten any kind of directive yet as to what transportation and may look like?
Our latest,
We talk about 50%, phase 2.
our latest guideline is phase 2, which is 50% of the capacity of the bus. If we get into phase 3, it's 75%, which makes it a lot better. Mr. Bodie and Mr. Kosei are working on a report. In fact, it's on my desk. We're going to be looking at it tomorrow to see how we can maybe adjust some routes or do some things so that we can transport the kids that need to be transported next year.
Okay, so it really just mostly hinges right now on what phase we are entered
phase we're
into
in.
by the state and Department of Health and Ed and
Yes.
governor
They
and
still
everybody
require the
else.
distancing on the bus as much as possible, and they also require face masks for everybody that's riding the bus.
My question on the distancing inside the bus is like a family pod, one group of kids, or each individual child?
Those kids can sit together. They don't
Okay.
have to do social distancing, but between them and the next pod would have to be.
So if there's three or children in one family on a
can-
bus,
they can sit
on
on
that
one seat.
particular, they can sit together. It's not that they have to be spaced out throughout the
Correct,
bus.
but they count as part of the 50%.
That's our biggest problem, is that you can only go to 50% capacity. And then they say to distance yourself, your students to the best extent possible.
Okay, I was just curious, I mean, you know, a lot of people are asking, I'm sure many of us board members in the public, you know, what's it gonna look like? But,
Yes, sir.
and my best answer is, I don't know.
We're gonna be giving y'all a report soon based on the guidelines that will be in place at that time. So
But
we'll-
that's
we'll-
all subject to change as well.
Yes, sir.
Based on, you know, the positive testing that's going on and everything else, so
Yeah,
just
it's not-
because.
Not looking real good to go
Yeah,
to phase
just
3
because
right
we're
now.
close one day, we may not even, we may be going the other way in a week or two.
Correct.
All right, I thank y'all for the information.
Mr. Kuzan?
If we go to phase 3, we don't have too many buses that carry 75% capacity, do we?
Well, it's the 75% of the
Capacity
total
of the
population
bus.
that's going on the bus. So if it's a 72, if it's a 66 passenger bus and at 50%, we're looking at 33 students. If it's 75%, then we're in between the 33 and 66.
But we do have some buses that hold more than 75%.
Do?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Some of our runners.
Mr. Brown?
So basically, that was my question. What percentage of our buses would exceed the 75% normally? And I don't need an exact
No, sir,
number, but.
we've looked at that, and the majority of our buses, the runs, the routes would
At
hold.
at one
would ha-
point
would
in the
have-
route there.
Would have
over
more than
capa-
50%. If you
More
look
than
at,
50, but how about 75?
we.
We don't know, okay.
Well, we would have to look carefully at that. I don't want to give you misinformation. I would say,
I was just
you know, we
saying
would
off
look,
the-
certainly we would look better there.
Yeah.
But as we ran those routes last year, or runs last year, that's what we were looking at.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lamy?
Another question, and I know it would go back to the education part, so I'm gonna stay away from that, but I know we spoke about the bus, the app for the buses, remember? That we were looking at, so that they would kind of know when they're coming. Is that something we're still looking at, so that maybe we don't have a cluster of kids hanging out at a bus stop?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the board on the transportation? Thank you, Mr. Kosei.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Ms. Tipton, our monthly construction report.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Our first item is consideration of bids for Covington Elementary School additions, St. Tammany Parish School Board Project 1915. We took these bids actually just yesterday, and we received quite a few bids. It was a very strong response, which we were very happy about. We are recommending acceptance of the low base bid plus alternates 1, 2, and 3, which was submitted by CM Combs Construction LLC in the amount of $6,359,000 for the additions at Covington Elementary School.
Ms. Tipton, can you share with me what, or share with us what alternate 1 and 2 and 3 are?
Yes, ma'am. Alternate number, the base bid, just to get you started, is a new 16-classroom, 2-story building that will replace the modular classroom wing and 4 portable classroom buildings that are there. The alternate number 1 is a music classroom addition. Their music classroom currently takes place mostly in the gym and on the stage in the gym, and so this would give them an actual classroom for music there. And then alternate number 2 is a new car drop canopy and front entrance canopy system for the school. at the entry, which they really could use. And then alternate number 3 is a covered playground area that's accessible to all students.
Music to my ears to get rid of these modulars. I love it.
We're working on it.
Permanent structure, very good, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bro?
Yes, when you brought up modulars, I know at the last time we put the vote for the tax before the citizens, we had a bunch of projects on the list, and getting rid of modulars was, of course, a big concern. Was this project on that list? Okay, so it's a done deal. The voters have said yay.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Any comments from the public? None. Let's go ahead and vote on that motion. And that motion carries 14 yeas, 0 nays. Ms. Tipton, item B.
This is another bid. We took that bid on Tuesday of this week. It's for Salmon High School. These bids, we are recommending the low base bid, which was submitted by Smith Construction Company, in the amount of $1,070,510. This is for the welding shop and career technical classrooms at Salmon High School, St. Tammany Parish School Board Project number 1970.
Thank you, Ms. Tipton. Do I have a motion? I see Mr. Hersey over there with the motion. Ms. Drucker seconds that motion. Any comments from the board? Seeing none, any comments from the public? None there. Let's vote. And that motion carries 14 yeas, no nays. Ms. Tipton, item C.
Short construction report. At Madisonville Elementary and Mandeville High, the buildings are both being closed in, and both projects are progressing very well. The Fifth Ward Junior High Additions project is advertised for bids and scheduled for bid receipt at the end of July. The Abney Early Childhood classroom buildings project is underway, and that contractor is preparing to move some existing utility lines out of the building area. And the Abney parking lot is underway as well. They've begun clearing the site. The documents for the additions to Lancaster Elementary School are in production. The document production for the capital improvement projects for the new bond issue, those are continuing to progress well. We've had a steady stream of plans and specifications in our office for owner review over the last few weeks. Folsom Junior and Abita Middle roofing projects are complete, and the warranty inspections are scheduled for next week. The painting is complete at Boyette Junior High, and the new roof panels for the main walkway breezeway are expected on site next week. The new metal roof panels are being installed on the main walkway canopy at Bonnie Cole Elementary. At Lyon Elementary, the contractor is installing the new metal soffit panels, and they're progressing on the roof replacement. The roof coating at the carpentry shop at Pearl River High is complete, and that same work is scheduled for the Meat Center metal roof as soon as the weather allows. And work on the drainage and associated repairs at Salmon High School is going well also. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Winkler?
On the Abney Early Childhood Center, is that additional classrooms, or?
Yes, sir.
is that-
So
That's not taking up portables? 'Cause the reason I ask is because of the subdivision that they're building Lake Shore down there. I went by there, and it's huge. And I think those kids will go to Abney. So I don't know if we're keeping up with that project, with that growth of that area. But apparently this'll help How many rooms is that
This
center?
is 4 classrooms and a staff area.
Okay.
Those are pre-K. kindergarten.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Derman?
Ms. Tipton, this is just a general question, but I mean, with the permitting and stuff through the parish that we have to get for the schools, and I know with some of the closures of, the offices, is that creating any kind of difficulty at all as far as our timelines?
All of the municipalities have had some way to continue working. I'm not going to say that it didn't maybe slow down here and there, but we've worked through those
So
kinds
it's
of
really not
things.
creating much of a delay in the process then?
We've continued working with everybody and working through their process wherever they are in the midst of all this.
Because I know we got a lot of projects coming up, and they're just all about to hit that stage. So
Yes, sir.
I was
You're
just
right.
curious. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Everybody's been very responsive.
Mr. Nation?
Thank you, Mr. Green. Ms. Tipton, related to Mr. Derman's question, and again, just as a general question, with the shutdown of the school system since 13 March, or anyway, since early March, have we been able to get ahead on any of these projects because of that, or have we been able to not get behind, like we would say with rain and hurricanes and things like that?
Yes, sir. I mean, we've remained on schedule. For many of the firms that we work with, they had to regroup as well to
Right.
work from home and get all of their team working that way. So they may have lost a little time in that respect, just figuring those things out, but everybody has continued to work. And, construction remained an essential service. So the contractors have continued to work through that time. Municipalities found a way, to continue to provide the services necessary to the construction. So all of it has continued to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bro?
Yeah, and as you may have, in my report last month, noted that we were able to move forward with some of our summer projects during the shutdown. So a lot of them have finished early, or got a head start. So that was good. Thank you.
This is probably not related to construction, but Mr. Winkler brought up the subject of we're experiencing population growth in certain areas, and Mandeville for sure, and now in the Salmon area. And I know we've talked about doing some kind of study to try to anticipate where the needs are. Do we have any progress on that, or is there something in the works that we can look forward to in the future to hearing a report on?
Mr. Jabber, would you like to address some of the things that you're working on?
Yes, sir. Been working with Mr. Bouillon. We've got a module of our JPAMS program, EdGear, that we just got, and I think we finally got it installed. Okay, so we're gonna be working, because it has that capability of, through, GIS, and all of the addresses. It's gonna be twofold. We've been trying to get all of our student addresses, physical addresses in, and where they're actually located. So this program is going to allow us to do that. It'll be able to plot where every student actually is within that school boundary, and then we're going to start looking at each one of those boundaries. And we will report back to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Derman?
Did I cover that correctly?
Mr. Jabby, one quick question for you. Is there a way to tie in, like, new development that's projected by the parish with the GIS or whatever you call it, as potential house sites and the growth that may come from those new developments? As opposed to just, what you're talking about, the horse is already in the stable.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the child.
Yeah.
And the overcrowding is already there, as opposed to, being proactive and plan for future development.
The base map in the Edgelog system is the same map that the parish uses, so we take an update from them usually once a quarter. So all the new roads are being built for these new subdivisions. We are incorporating those into the map transportation software so that we see them as they're being built. So that's how we're pulling that data in from the parish.
Or the new
All, yeah, all the new subdivisions are there, all the new 911 addresses are there, so that's.
And is there a formula that is used to calculate like the, I guess, the size of the house or the cost of the house on an estimated child, student basis or something?
We have
Potential?
access to the assessor's property maps as well, so that we can see the lot sizes, but we don't see costs or anything like
No,
that.
no,
But
I'm not, yeah.
we would see we can see the sizes and how close the lots are to one another to see density.
I just think as all of us board members ride around, we look and there's like subdivision after subdivision that coming up everywhere. So, you're just wondering, where in the world we're gonna put all these kids. Thank you. I appreciate the information.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Lamy.
On that same note, when you go through all of this information and we get the census and all of those things, don't we look at redistricting? Is that what your purpose is? Is that what you were saying when we look at? I know, redrawing boundaries. I know it's a feisty topic, but truth be told, I mean, isn't that what we look at? Or no, is that not
It's-
true? I don't know, I'm new to this.
I think the purpose of the study is to see where we may have some
A new
overcrowding at it, with different subdivisions come in, overcrowding at certain schools, and it's pockets throughout the parish. And then once we can see that, then we can come back and suggest maybe some adjustments of what we need to do.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, thanks.
Sure. Mr. Javia? Oh,
Yep, Mr. Nation.
just so that there's no confusion, because Mrs. Lamy mentioned census and redistricting. Those are two distinct processes, correct? I mean, there's
Yes.
the census, which is for political redistricting
School
for
board,
school
yeah,
board
school board
members.
members, right.
And we're talking about, Mr. Bro's question is talking
No,
about.
this is school attendance zones.
Yeah.
Attendance zones, school attendance zones, thank you.
School boundary survey, however you want to, whatever you want to call it. But it's separate from redistricting school board site, so, okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Tipton.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is our internal auditor report. Mr. Incaprera is here to answer any questions that you have. Any questions from the board? Mr. Nation?
Thank you, Mr. Green. Not really a question, but just a compliment and a comment. I just want to thank Mr. Incaprera. You've hit the ground running. How long, you've been with us now, what, 6 months?
Come on up, Mr.
Come on up.
Incaprera.
That's right. And you've been with us 6 months, and I can't tell you how much I personally appreciate the reports and the professionalism that you've shown, and just getting in and getting the work done. So just want to say kudos to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Everybody's been very helpful.
Yeah, I'll echo Mr. Nation's comments, and I also wanted to say, looked like item 3, you're in the process of developing an internal auditor's plan. Do you have a timeline for that, or following risk assessments of all the schools, it seems like you're going to develop that. So what's your thought on a timeline for that?
I'll talk to Mr. Jabi, and Terry, but I'll be prepared next board meeting, to provide it.
Okay,
I mean, committee as a whole, excuse me.
great, thank you.
Jim's done a good job.
Yeah.
He's hit the ground running, doing good.
Thanks for your work. Ms. Prevost is next, the monthly financial report.
Yes, sir. I provided you with the May financial statement. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any board members have questions? No? The purchasing report.
Ms. Stevens is here to answer any questions on that report.
Any questions on the purchasing report? Looks like we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Prevost. Before closing, I wanted to give Mr. Kuzan the floor real quick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would like to take an opportunity to pay tribute to a man that was my boss for like 20 years. I just found out that Richard had passed, Mr. Tanner had passed upon arriving at the meeting tonight. And as you all know, I was in this system 36 and a half years, and 26 of those years I was a supervisor, and Mr. Tanner was my boss for 20 of those years. And he served in many different capacities in the system. He was even interim superintendent. And he did so many things for this system that if you were not on the inside, you would hardly realize how important he was to this system. So I'd just like to say that, express my condolences to the Tanner family and to Richard and many others like him, but Richard is one of the reasons why this system is so highly rated as it is right now. So I just want to make sure that this information gets out. Rest in peace, my friend. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. Announcements by the board president, Mr. Nation.
Thank you, Mr. Green, and thank you, Mr. Kuzan, for that. Got a couple of announcements tonight. One that's not on there, I just want to say another person that's hit the ground running is our new interim superintendent, Mr. Jabbia. He and I he had his first graduation as superintendent last night at Pearl River High School, and at the very end of the graduation, they lit off fireworks for him. So I'm kidding, I'm kidding about the fireworks for him, but there were fireworks in Pearl River. It just goes to show how our schools are embedded in their communities, because as they said, one community, one school, and so Pearl River High School, they were so excited, and I don't know who did it, but whoever did it spent a lot of money, which it was well worth it for the kids, because it was a real fireworks show. It wasn't just a couple of folks out lighting bottle rockets. So, but anyway, and also a thank you to our former superintendent, Mr. Foles, and to Mr. Jabbie and the whole staff for arranging all these graduations. So I wore the same suit, which now can walk by itself, so I need to go take it to the dry cleaners. All right. Moving on to more serious notes, central office and all our satellite offices are closed tomorrow, July 3rd, to celebrate the 244th year of our independence as a nation, as the greatest nation on earth as far as I'm concerned, and in human history. The regular board meeting is next Thursday, July 9th at 7 p.m. 2020 board meeting dates have been posted to Board Docs homepage and are attached to the handout sections of the agenda. And those are all my announcements tonight. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Nation. Thank you all for being here tonight, and with no further business, this meeting is adjourned.